Cruise luggage rules for 2026 are not just stricter. In several cases, they're easier to miss. A bag that passed without trouble a year ago can now cause delays at the airport, the cruise terminal, on board, or during port visits. And some of the biggest problems do not look like security issues at all. Rule number 1. Your luggage problem can now start at the airport, not the cruise terminal. The rules for what you keep in your carry-on changed before you ever reach the ship. If you're flying to a U.S. home port on a domestic flight, you need a real ID compliant driver's license or another acceptable document, like a passport, to get through airport security. That rule came into effect on May 7, 2025. A lot of cruisers still think this is a cruise line issue. It's not. It's a federal airport security requirement, and it applies the second you step up to the TSA checkpoint, not when you reach embarkation. If your state-issued ID is not Real ID compliant, you will not get past the gate. What this means for your packing is straightforward. Your travel documents belong in the bag you physically carry, not your checked luggage. Passport in your carry-on. Boarding documents in your carry-on. If your ID is not compliant and your passport is buried in a suitcase that gets checked, the problem starts before the cruise terminal is even in sight. That's a luggage mistake most people don't think to make because it doesn't sound like a luggage rule. But the document your bag carries is now the first line of entry, and if it's not in the right bag, you're done before the day starts. It's also worth knowing that a standard driver's license is not Real ID compliant just because it looks official. You're looking for a star in the upper corner of the card. If your license does not have that star, it is not accepted for domestic air travel. Check before you pack, and if there's any doubt, take your passport and keep it on your person. Rule 2. Norwegian now makes your pre-boarding document bag more important. Norwegian Cruise Lines tied boarding more tightly to government departure manifest requirements, and that affects what your carry-on needs to hold. Guests must complete advanced guest registration before sailing day and be checked in and on board no later than 1 hour before departure. Miss that window, and NCL says you may not be permitted to sail. That is a firm cutoff, and it changes how you think about your boarding bag. Your passport, e-docs, and anything needed for check-in should be in the bag you physically carry, not the suitcase you handed to a porter at the terminal entrance, not the bag you're waiting to retrieve at your stateroom. The practical point is this. At check-in, speed matters. Having your documents in a bag you can open immediately means you do not lose time looking for things when the clock is already running. The guests who miss embarkation are often not late because they're slow travelers. They're late because something they needed was in the wrong bag. Rule 3. If you book Norwegian Air, same-day packing and flying is now a riskier plan. From January 26, 2026, guests who purchase airfare through Norwegian must arrive at the embarkation city at least 1 day before sailing. That policy change affects how you pack because it turns embarkation into a 2-stage trip, a travel day and a cruise day. The bag that gets you through the first night matters more now. Your medication goes in it. Your charger goes in it. Anything you need access to before your checked luggage arrives at the stateroom should be in the overnight bag you keep close. The mindset of grabbing something from your suitcase when you board was always risky on same-day trips. With NCL now requiring a pre-sailing arrival for booked air guests, that thinking becomes a plan that breaks down more often than it holds up. Think of the overnight bag as the bag that has to work completely on its own. One change of clothes, toiletries, every prescription you need that evening and the next morning, phone charger, travel documents. If your checked bag disappeared and you had only your overnight bag, you should still be able to board the ship and function on day 1. That is the packing standard that the new NCL policy makes worth adopting. Rule 4. Disney now puts a very specific cap on the hairdryer you pack. Disney Cruise Lines already provides a hairdryer in every stateroom, But the policy also specifies what you're allowed to bring if you prefer your own. Personal hair dryers must be 220 volt 2000 watt max or 110 volt 1500 watt max. Anything above those limits is not allowed. That's a more specific restriction than most cruisers expect, because the assumption tends to be that small personal appliances are fine to bring. Hair dryer, flat iron, travel steamer. If it fits in the bag, the thinking goes, it probably travels. The wattage cap changes that. A high-powered salon-style dryer can fall outside those limits. At a Disney terminal, that item can be flagged and secured. Since Disney already supplies one in the stateroom, the simplest answer is to leave yours at home. But if you are set on bringing it, check the wattage before it goes in the bag. Rule 5. Carnival's collapsible wagon loophole is basically gone where people want to use it most. Carnival clarified in August 2025 that collapsible wagons are not for use during embarkation, debarkation, or anywhere on the ship. Guests can still bring one, but it must be folded and carried during those stages, and it can only be used off the ship in ports where it's permitted. This matters because the collapsible wagon became a popular boarding strategy. Some passengers use it to move beach gear, extra bags, and port supplies in a single load. The appeal was obvious: less back and forth at the pier, easier management at embarkation. That appeal is what Carnival's clarification closed off. The wagon can still go in the trunk for a beach day at a port stop. What it cannot do is function as a boarding tool. Anyone counting on it to solve an embarkation logistics problem is going to find out at exactly the wrong moment that it just became dead weight. There's also a practical issue with where you store it on the ship. Because it's not allowed to be used on board, you're keeping a folded wagon in your stateroom for the entire cruise. On a ship where cabin storage is already tight, that's real space taken up by something you can only use on specific port days. Factor that in before it goes in the car. Rule 6. MSC now treats smart glasses as a security problem in public areas. MSC says devices capable of covert or discreet recording are not allowed in public areas on the ship. Smart glasses fall into that category, and that puts them in a class of bag items that have nothing to do with old-style contraband. The traveler who packs smart glasses is not planning to cause a problem. The glasses are new, they're popular, and they feel like a regular accessory. But the ship sees them as a privacy and security issue in shared spaces. Cruise security is no longer limited to knives and hot plates. It now extends to wearable technology, and the practical question for 2026 is not just whether you can bring something, but whether you can actually use it once you're on board. With MSC, the answer for smart glasses in public areas is no. If you do bring smart glasses and plan to wear them, keep them for private use in your stateroom, and be aware that the definition of a public area on a ship is broad. It covers the pool deck, restaurants, bars, lounges, entertainment venues, and common corridors. Essentially, anywhere other passengers are present is a public area. Plan accordingly. Rule 7. Royal Caribbean also tightened smart glasses rules, but in a more detailed way. Royal Caribbean allows smart glasses on board, but has a list of places where they cannot be used. That list includes restrooms, locker rooms, the medical facility, youth areas, crew areas, back of house tours, and the casino. That makes smart glasses a restricted use item on Royal Caribbean, not a normal accessory you carry freely. And that is exactly where people run into trouble. Something can be allowed on board and still be confiscated or flagged for use in the wrong area. Packing an item is the first clearance. Using it everywhere you want to use it is a separate question, and with smart glasses on Royal Caribbean, the answer in a lot of spaces on the ship is a clear no. A lot of these new luggage problems are not about obvious contraband. They come from packing normal-looking items that now fall into a restricted category, and the next few rules are where that gets even easier to miss. Rule 8. Royal Caribbean now makes snack packing much more specific. Royal Caribbean says guests may bring a sensible amount of pre-packaged sealed snacks on board. That wording rules out homemade food, open containers, and anything in quantities that look excessive. For most guests, the instinct is that food is generally fine to carry. A bag of chips, a few granola bars, some snacks for a long embarkation day. The assumption has always been that food is a low-risk bag item. The pre-packaged and sealed standard tightens that. If your snacks are not in factory-sealed packaging, they fall outside what the policy allows. That is a simple fix if you know about it before you pack, and a frustrating discovery at security if you don't. The sensible amount qualifier is worth paying attention to too. Bringing a few bags of trail mix for a sea day is one thing. Arriving with a full cooler of snacks to avoid paying ship prices is a different situation, and the policy is worded to cover exactly that. Keep it reasonable, keep it sealed, and keep it in a bag that you have easy access to at security. Rule number 9. On Royal Caribbean, baby monitors are no longer a harmless little extra. Royal Caribbean's updated prohibited items list includes baby monitors among the electronical items and equipment that are not allowed on board. There are stated exceptions, but the default position is that a baby monitor is a prohibited device. That surprises most parents because the logic seems straightforward. A baby monitor is a safety tool. It belongs in the same category as a nightlight or a white noise machine in most people's thinking. Royal Caribbean does not see it that way in their current policy. Parents who plan to bring one need to check the specific exceptions and, if the item falls outside of those, find an alternative before they arrive at the terminal. Arriving at security with a prohibited item you packed out of genuine concern is a poor way to start a sailing. Rule 10. Some baby gear now needs case-by-case approval before it goes in your bag. Baby bottle cleaners, sanitizers, and warmers are prohibited by default on Royal Caribbean. The exception is pre-approval through the access team before sailing. That makes this a pre-clearance issue more than a packing issue. The question is no longer just whether an item fits in your bag. It's whether the cruise line has already approved it before you arrive at security. Families traveling with infants often carry items like this without a second thought, because the need for a bottle warmer seems self-evident. But if it has not been cleared through the access team in advance, it lands in the same category as other prohibited items at the terminal. The fix is to contact Royal Caribbean well before sailing day, not to assume the item will be waved through at the gate. Rule 11. Mexico can turn the vape in your day bag into a real shore problem. Royal Caribbean advises guests that vapes and e-cigarettes may not be taken ashore in Mexico. This is a destination law issue, and it's easy to miss because most travelers think only about what the ship allows. The logic that trips people up is this: if the ship allows vaping in designated areas, the item feels permitted. What that ignores is that port day rules follow the laws of the destination, not the policies of the cruise line. The same device that is fine in a ship smoking area becomes a legal problem in your shore bag in a Mexico port. Anyone who carries a vape and plans to take it with them on a Mexico excursion needs to know that rule before they step off the gangway. The broader principle here is that port day packing is its own preparation step. What is in your ship use bag and what is in your shore bag are two different questions, and the answers do not always match. Mexico is the specific example Royal Caribbean flags, but checking destination rules before you pack your day bag is the habit that protects you at every stop on your itinerary. Rule 12. Barbados makes camouflage clothing a packing mistake, not a style choice. Royal Caribbean advises guests that camouflage and military-style clothing is prohibited in Barbados for anyone who is not military personnel. The ban covers the kind of casual camo print that shows up on shorts, hats, and cover-ups. Now that's the kind of rule that sounds minor until it creates a problem at a port gate. Someone wearing camo shorts on a beach day can face a legal issue in Barbados over an item they packed without a second thought. The shore day bag matters here. What you wear off the ship in Barbados is subject to local law, and camo in any form is on the wrong side of that law. Check what's going in the day bag and what's going on your body before the ship docks. The Barbados rule tends to catch people who pack versatile travel clothing without thinking through every port stop. A lightweight camo overshirt that works well in humid weather, or a camo patterned swimsuit cover-up, both qualify. If Barbados is on your itinerary, leave those items in the stateroom for that day and pack something plain instead. Rule 13. Alaska souvenir blades can come back on board, but not the way people expect. Royal Caribbean says Ulu knives purchased in Alaska may be brought back on board, but they must stay in the stateroom for the remainder of the cruise. They are not allowed to be carried around the ship or used outside the stateroom. The distinction matters because not every prohibited-looking item is an automatic denial. Some items shift into a controlled storage category instead. A Ulu knife purchased as a souvenir is one of them. Allowed on board, but restricted to a specific location. Now, where people get caught out is assuming that because the item is allowed back on the ship, it travels normally from that point on. It does not. If it leaves the stateroom and gets noticed by crew or security, the fact that it was purchased in port does not cover the situation. If you're buying a Ulu knife as a gift to bring home, the stateroom-only restriction is also worth thinking about before the purchase, because you will be living with that item in your cabin for however many days remain on the cruise. Make sure you have somewhere safe to store it, and pack it properly in checked luggage once you reach your home port at the end of the sailing. Rule 14. Celebration Key adds a new ashore baggage trap for Carnival guests. Celebration Key is one of the newer private destinations in the Carnival network, and its shore guidelines already include a list of items guests cannot bring ashore. Drones are on that list. Collapsible wagons are on that list too. This connects back to Rule 5, but from a different angle. A guest who understood that the wagon cannot be used at embarkation and planned to save it for a beach destination instead may find that the destination has its own restrictions. The wagon that seemed like it would finally be useful at Celebration Key is not allowed there either. Your luggage does not stop being regulated once you clear embarkation. At newer private island destinations, the rules can begin again the moment you pack your shore bag and leave the ship. Celebration Key is still a relatively new destination in the Carnival lineup, and its policies will continue to develop as more ships call there. The practical takeaway is to check the specific destination guide before any port day, especially at private islands where the cruise line sets its own rules rather than following a local government framework. What you pack for a day ashore is its own packing decision. The mistake most travelers make is thinking luggage rules end once they board. In 2026, they follow your bag from the airport to the terminal, onto the ship, and into the port. Now subscribe and click the next video on screen if you want to cruise smarter before your next sailing. Your voyage is just beginning.